Well, I think we're starting. I am trying right now to set up the chat window to make sure that that is set up correctly. And as soon as I can verify that, we'll go ahead and begin the Q&A. This is an experiment, as I normally don't live stream, and I consider myself fairly terrible at it. All right, looks like the chat window is showing up. So, I have no idea how many viewers or listeners I will get in this because I quite literally sprung it with absolutely no advertising, no warm up, nothing. But essentially, one of the problems that I've had trying to make regular content is just simply getting over a perfectionist complex. You know, I have a mild OCD, and hopefully some of that comes through in the quality of the videos that I make. But for the most part, I don't do anything off the cuff because I'm not happy with the results, and I'm trying to get a little bit more familiar with that. I see Obi-Wan Bill Kenobi is here. Hello, sir. So the point of this live stream is just sort of me trying to get more familiar with the format, and also just being available to answer any sort of live Q&A. We can talk about anything. We can talk about programming. We can talk about the demo scene. We can talk about gaming on an old school PC. We can talk about the upcoming Vintage Computer Festival Midwest, which is currently in planning stages. We already have a venue. We're already taking exhibitors' requests. Forgive me, Bill Kenobi. There is a roughly 15-second delay. So if I don't respond immediately, it's not you. It's because like I just now saw it or something. But yeah, perfectionism is a bitch. Even now, I feel incredibly like, you know, my entire fight or flight mechanism is engaged. My lizard brain is saying, stop this, hit stop. But I don't know. We're going to give it a try. I mean, I was trying to do a lot of these tests with this as 4K. I think it's a 4K stream still. You know, there's very little moving. It's just a little head here. And there we go. The DOSBox window I have set up in case we need to do any DOSBoxing. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, just as sort of a general random status. Vintage Computer Festival Midwest is at the same venue as it was last year. We are moving the talks downstairs. We have the whole venue now, so we have access to the downstairs. And the talks hall that was previously for talks is now opened up to more exhibitors. And so we're going to have 25% more exhibitors this year. And we're pretty excited about that. We're also looking into some possible organizational changes, which can only mean good things. It doesn't mean we're going to start charging for the show. The show will always, unless a catastrophe occurs, the show will always be free to attend. It's always been that way, and we're going to try to keep it that way. But we might be doing some organizational changes in the back end that might help with making the show better. So there's that. For anyone, I mean, I would imagine 90% of the people attending this stream probably have. And speaking of Vintage Computer Festival Midwest, I see RetroTech Chris has shown up. Hello, Chris. How are you? There's a delay on the stream, so if I don't respond immediately, I apologize. I clocked it myself at about 17 or 20 seconds. And oh, by the way, and if my volume level is no good, or there's some delay, you know, like some audio delay, you know, between what's going on, please let me know. I tried to test this as much as I could, but who knows? So there is indeed a downstairs of the venue, and not only that, it extends past the actual exhibitor area. You can actually, I don't know if you remember the beginning of the venue where you go to check in, like at the hotel part. There's a winding staircase that goes down, and there is a talks area. There's a big room down there set up for at least 150 seats, I think. and a screen that comes out of the ceiling and everything. So we're going to try to move the talks down there. And hopefully that will also help with a little bit of the crowding. One of the problems we've been trying to solve at the show is whenever we have a very popular speaker or panel of speakers, the hallways get choked with people trying to get into the talks hall. And this way, we hope that the traffic flow will be better. So we will see. Cool. I'm a little worried about it myself because we are also going to do the auction down there. The auction is the fundraising part of the show. It's where we auction off our own stuff and donations and whatever, and the money raised there helps pay for the show for next year. And it's going to be, we don't have enough room for it. The auction is always a little difficult to try to manage from a logistics standpoint because we need to have an area for lots of people to be and congregate and bid and see the item. However, most of the items are so large or unwieldy that they're in a different part of the venue. And so we're going to have the items upstairs, but the auction downstairs, which means we have to look into some sort of wireless video solution or something. I'm not really totally sure. Hey, you two, is the Area 5150 source code released? It is not released. It will be released when we finish a final version. A final version is very long in coming. We know that. However, I can tell you that I've seen, Weiler has been doing a ton of great work. He's tightened up a couple of pieces of code that had like little bits of snow on the side of the screen, and now they don't. But most importantly, he's been filling in all of the graphics. So the long 3-screen scroll is now a very nice targeted 2-screen scroll that makes more sense with the crystal ball scroller. The Doomhead is now surrounded by like a whole bunch of art. It's amazing. And I think the only thing left for us to really work on is the long credits, the long greets scroller, the Marble Madness scroller. Once we have a final version released, the source code will go online in a GitHub account. I'm sure I'll announce it and you'll be able to find it. The source code is a little bit of C, but it's mostly assembler. So hope you know your assembler. And we'll include our build scripts and things like that, but we're not going to include necessarily any build tools if they're proprietary, like Turbo Assembler or something like that. But the source code is written in a mixtures of assemblers. I wrote the loader, and I wrote the loader in Turbo Assembler. But you can find Turbo Assembler anywhere on the net, so it's not a big deal. Other people wrote their code mostly in, I wrote my code in Turbo Assembler, and I was responsible for the loader, which loads and decompresses code and passes control from bits of code to the other and handles signaling and stuff like that. The loader is essentially something that loads COM files manually, like not DOS. The loader loads them, relocates them, stuff like that. So that'll be released. I did that in Turbo Assembler. Weiler wrote all of his parts in FASM, Fast Assembler, and Rianigni wrote his parts in NASM, or probably YASM, the fork of NASM. And then Bill Hart wrote his portions in a mixture of Watcom C and I don't remember what assembler. So anyhow. Bill recommends inviting Pushing Up Roses to VCFMW. She does live in Chicago. She's been to my house. It's been a long time, about 6 or 7, or maybe even 8 years. Pushing Up Roses and Clint came to my house, and we went to Portillo's and had some good food at Portillo's, and then we came back and played some, not Mortal Kombat, but the other title that they did, the DC Heroes, I think, because her boyfriend at the time, and I think still boyfriend, I'm not sure, worked on that game at Midway, and so we talked tech and played games, and it was a nice fun time. Oh, and I also let them walk away with a bit of my collection because I was trying to downsize, so it worked out great for everybody. People have also said that we recommend inviting Alec from Technology Connections, and we have but usually never hear anything back. And then he showed up randomly and unexpectedly and wonderfully last year, very briefly, and then disappeared again. He's also local, and we would love to have him show up. If he wanted to give a panel talk, I would shove all the other talks out of the way to make room for him. But yeah, it would be fantastic. I can go ahead and extend that invitation to Pushing Up Roses. I'm not. She's sort of pivoted her YouTube channel away from that, but if she maybe she'll be interested. I have it on good authority that Clint Basinger will be at our show. I have it on good authority that David Murray will be at our show. Pushing Up Roses is friends with Clint. Maybe that will be an incentive. Who knows? But thanks for the suggestion. As for a Let's Play in front of a live audience, I'm not entirely sure if they would be willing to do that. Also, unfortunately, I kind of have to say that we try to focus the talks, the presentations, etc., on vintage computing. It is a vintage computer festival. So if we had no slots to fill, I'd be perfectly happy with people going up there and doing a Let's Play. The streaming would be terrible, unfortunately, because the venue only gives, I want to say something like 1 megabit upload per MAC address. I think it's 1 megabit upload and 5 megabit download per MAC address. So that's why you don't see us streaming the event live, because there's just really not enough bandwidth. We also tried using a custom like cell tower puck, one of those custom things you can get, and that didn't work very well either, because when you're actually in the venue, you're surrounded by a ton of electromagnetic radiation and radio interference. So Wi-Fi doesn't work too well in a vintage computer show. Who'd have thunk it? So we have to rely on the hotel Wi-Fi and hotel wired line connections. And like I said, it's everybody gets the bare minimum, which is 1 megabit upload, and so you can't really stream with that. Anime Soki, forgive me for the delay. It takes me a while to notice these things. What show? The show is the Vintage Computer Festival Midwest. It is a show that myself, Jason Timmons, and Mike Lee put on every year. You can get more information from, and I wonder if the chat will let me do this, www.vcfmw.org. The new website is not up yet, but we are planning the show. And I started blabbing about it just because I'm involved, and I thought people might want to know about it. But this live stream is an experiment that will be going on for about another hour and 15 minutes until 11 o'clock my time. It's currently 9:45 my time. So if anyone has any questions, chat, random stuff. I haven't been watching the Oscars, but I hope Everything Everywhere All at Once wins. I'll check after the chat is over. Feel free to just shout anything out in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer it for as long as we're going, about another hour or so. There is no specific forum. Hey, you two. There's no specific forum or website, but I will most likely blog about it on my blog, which is where I blogged about the previous one about Area 5150, and that is trickster.oldschool.org. And yeah, I think that's I'll announce it, and it'll probably be announced a few other places. Certainly on Pouet. So if you're not familiar with Pouet, it is for 20 years now, it's been a demo scene kind of BBS release website, discussion forum, all sorts of stuff. And on the actual, I don't know if the chat will let me paste an actual full URL, but if you go to Pouet and you search for Area 5150, you'll pull up the page for it and a whole bunch of comments and discussion. Excuse me. And I'm sure that once the source code is released, not only will there be a comment pinned there, but there will also be, let's see, Chris is telling me the volume level is a little low. So let's adjust that. Okay, Chris, hopefully that's a little bit better. If not, let me know. Yeah, so the Pouet landing page should have a link to the code when it's up. But if you just want to subscribe to my blog or something like that, I'll probably also mention it on Twitter. I am at MobyGamer on Twitter, so you could do that. Chris, let me know if the volume level's a little bit better. It looks like I'm hitting about negative 20 dB. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and pop it up a little bit. Hopefully that's a little bit better. As long as I'm not clipping, I'm happy. I've had to switch a little bit between dynamic and condenser mics. This is a condenser mic, and I'll stop talking about condenser mics because Jesper says, do you know some good sites for old legacy computer drivers? Used to be drivers.com until they got taken over by some evil presence and started putting exe adware wrappers on all of their stuff. So no, a better place for drivers. The Vogon's wiki has a driver section, and they've got, it's mostly for sound card drivers, because Vogon's, but that's not a slam. It's just, that's what, Vogon's tends to focus on that a lot, but there might be some other stuff there too. Archive.org is, of course, another good place for drivers. If you just go there and randomly search, you might find something. I have let's see if this works. This might work. I maintain a personal archive of lots of old school drivers, anywhere from hard drive setup cards, like hard card setup programs, to old video card drivers like DOS, VESA drivers for Paradise VGA chipsets or whatever. So you can try that as well. I think that link will work. Can you guys see these links that they're not full links, but can you see the partial links I'm typing in the chat? Pirate Gamer Boy, hey, Stu Feldhammer must not be streaming if you're showing up. VGA font, just tuning in. Not totally sure what you mean by that. Do you mean what is the font on the screen? Yes, it is the simulated font in DOSBox here. Let's see if the window's still good. Yeah, it is. Yes, that's just DOSBox running VGA. So it's here in case somebody needed something. Here, I'll just leave it up so the cursor can blink. But if you're looking for an actual VGA font that you want to use in your own stuff, I would highly recommend you go to int10h.org and pick up the old school font pack done by Weiler, who did Area 5150. See how I'm bringing this stuff around? It's a ludicrously comprehensive font pack of every single font. I mean, I feel confident calling it every single font for a PC or compatible. I mean, there's over 300 of them. And it's stuff like CGA, 40 column, 80 column, VGA, 9x16, 8x16. Well, that's EGA really. My beloved Olivetti M24, the AT&T 6300, has an 8x14 font that's in there. And he has TrueType fonts, bitmap fonts, aspect corrected TrueType fonts. So that's cool. So if you're working with, if you don't need pixel perfect accuracy, but you need aspect ratio accuracy, he's got that too. So I would do that. Speaking of vintage game support, I wish someone would scan the manuals for UFO Flight Simulator by Sublogic. I think I have that. If I have it, I'll put it on my list. You can't see it, but I'm currently loading up I have most, not all, but I have most software in a spreadsheet. I would paste the link here, but I'm sure full links definitely don't work in the chat. That's something YouTube was implementing. Do I have UFO? I don't. I have XCOM UFO Defense. Apologies, Bill. I cannot scan it for you. Have you tried archive.org? They probably have it. There are also lots of abandonware sites that are still up from the days when we started it 25 years ago. There's at least 2 or 3. I think there's 2 that from when we started it that are still up, and I think one of them even still has full downloads. And there's a Home of the Underdogs mirror that's up somewhere. One or two. There used to be like 5 mirrors, and then I think they're down to 1. So you could try there, but try archive.org. Search for Home of the Underdogs. They might have it. So there you go. I don't know if the manuals are as important for UFO Flight Simulator as the keyboard overlay that came with that game. I mean, most of the Sublogic games, I mean, they're not games, they're simulations. You need something like, I don't know, there's like 30 keys that control everything, and without the keyboard overlay, you're lost. So, yeah, Pirate Gamer Boy, sorry, it is just DOSBox. In a previous live stream, actually my last live stream, I did have my 5160 hooked up via CGA, via an RGB to HDMI converter, via an HDMI input into the computer, and I did have a live screen up, but this is a very impromptu thing, so apologies, it's not real hardware. But it looks like real hardware, because I also included the screen reflections on the OBS overlay. Let's see. Sold on eBay and LGA is the other. Oh, come on. UFO Flight. There's got to be. UFO Flight Simulator. You know, I'm almost positive I actually have UFO. I'm almost sure of it. I'm not going to leave to get up and go check. It might be on... I stood up another bookshelf. I'm up to 8 now. And I started populating it. Bill, if you can get at my email or can contact me in some way, shoot me. Hey, Legalize Adulthood is here. Hello, Richard. Legalize Adulthood runs the... I literally just looked at your business card today. And I did not throw it out. Come on, where are you? Oh, I'm looking like a fool now because I can't find it. Rich, I was literally looking at your business card today. Legalized Adulthood runs I'm going to call it the world's largest terminal storage facility, museum, whatever you want to call it, in Utah, in the world. And... he's also given some great talks at VCF Midwest, and we're always happy to have him. I first met Legalized Adulthood in 2004 when he was running a demo party called Pilgrimage, and it was one hell of a time, and I had a great time, and I was really happy to do it. Pirate Gamer Boy says, uh-oh, lost audio. See, the crazy thing is... I'm looking at like dropped frames network here in OBS, and it's completely clear. It says 0%. So if there is something going on with the audio... Oh, you know what? I think I know what it is. So I built a new rig. Every 5 years, I build a new desktop rig. And, oh, you know what? Actually, some people have to leave. I'll tell you about the rig, and I think I know what happened to the audio, and it's interesting. Trust me, but let me just quickly go through... FTP being removed from Chrome. You're absolutely right, Chris. It totally sucks. The link that I gave to files.oldschool.org, it did drop for a bit. Okay, so I have an explanation of why that may have occurred. I have no dropped packets at all here, but I think I know what happened. I think it was a hardware problem, and I'll explain in a second. So, but this link here, when I'm talking about the... This driver archive that I used to run, it was on FTP, and then when Chrome removed FTP support, I got super angry. But I set up HTTP to that URL. So if you put HTTP in front of it, you should still be able to all the rest of the part of the URI should still work. So it's available via HTTP now. Pirate Gamer Boy, you got me to run a Taiwanese shooter at a potato frame rate. That potato frame rate was not my fault. It was the fault of the programmers. The fact that they did not use a hidden buffer and drew everything to the screen is like bananas. So I don't know. That just sucked. Stu, I appreciate you dropping in. I don't even know if you're still... oh, shoot. Is the audio still delayed? Oh, boy. Unfortunately, nothing has changed on my end, so I don't really know. I mean, oh, it does look delayed. Oh boy. I don't know how to fix that. Oh, yeah, it is delayed. Oh, that's so strange. Well, I don't know if it's a streaming delay or whatever. Is the audio still delayed? Can someone tell me? I'm going to assume it's not, and I'm going to keep answering questions. Oh, shoot. The audio's desynced. Wait a minute. Gee, thanks, Stu. Shoot. Well, I'm going to have to figure out what's wrong for the next stream. Yeah, it's funny. I'm talking and it does look desynced on this side. That doesn't seem to have fixed it. I'm not really sure what to do. That is unfortunate. I can see the delay in OBS. So OBS is delayed here. And what's crazy is that I haven't dropped any frames. Well, this stream might end very soon. So I'm really not sure. It's yeah. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Just don't look at me, and the stream won't be delayed. I do see a strange delay here. I can't figure it out. Apologies. I mean, any attempt to try to do anything is going to stop the stream. So, tell you what. Close your eyes. Don't look at me, and let me quickly go through what I was going to talk about. Let's see. Kenpo Joe asks, I have the old HP Media Center with the remote control and all the RCA and component jacks. Is it still a workable PC? No. Not really. I mean, maybe. But it would be a lot of work to get it workable as a media PC. And I don't think it would be compatible in any way with HT. So I don't know. If I'm misunderstanding you, let me know. Send me an email or something. We can talk about it more. Stu, thank you for showing up and telling me that my stream sucks. You're not wrong, but I expected it from you, but that's okay because I also give you some crap in your stream, so I still appreciate you showing up. So how the stream may have gotten desynced. Every 5 years, I build a new system. I spend as much as I am comfortable, as much money as I can scrounge up that makes sense to spend on a system. That way I can use the system without doing constant upgrades for like 4 years or 5 years. And so far it's come out to about 5 years. So I built a new system. It's an Intel i9 3900K with an RTX 4090 and currently 64 gig of RAM, but I can expand it to 128 if I need to. Currently, I do not need to. And I've got 4 spinning rust hard drives in it, and currently they are power managed so that they're not always spinning all the time, and they only spin up when they need to. However, sometimes they'll spin up and pause the computer because something tried to access the drive that these 4 drives make up. And it can't, and suddenly the whole system locks up and waits for the drive to spin up. And I have a feeling that's how the audio may have gotten desynced. So, later, Stu, I have a feeling the replay is also going to be out of sync, which is why I'm going to be ending this fairly soon. I can see the meter go when I'm not talking, so it's actually now desynced on this end. So I need to figure out the power situation with these hard drives. The system burns up like 250 watts idle, which is insane. So I now have a new habit of turning off my computer when I go to bed. I used to leave it on. Jesper, do you know how to make a DOS 622 install on a USB drive? Yes, actually. Well, wait, a DOS 622 install? Not initially. You can do a FreeDOS install on a USB drive simply by using Rufus, R-U-F-U-S. Grab that. I think it'll even download the image for you, and you can make a bootable USB that is DOS, but it's not DOS 622. I'm sure there's a guide out there for it. Honestly, though, you probably should stick with FreeDOS if it's the newest release, at least the released in the last year or so, because they came out with a new release, like for the first time in like a decade. The reason I'm recommending FreeDOS is because it natively supports FAT32, which would probably be very useful if you're trying to put stuff on a USB drive and then plug it into some system and boot pure DOS and run it. So I'm sure you can put DOS 622 on a USB, but I don't recommend it because I don't think it would be as practical as booting and using FreeDOS. Let's see. Yeah, 50 Shades of Beige. Hey there. Yeah, disconnect my latency inducing devices when I'm streaming. Either that or I'm probably just going to change the power so that they're always spinning all the time. But yeah. It would be a shame if the existing chat were lost. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to delete this live video. I'm sure that the audio delay is driving anyone nuts at this point. But I will save this, and you'll be able to refer to it, and the chat will be here. Unless you're talking about some other chat, in which case I apologize for misunderstanding you. Let's see. Bill says, I can't wait for TexLX quad floppy controller boards to go up for sale. All power to him and you. I like real floppy drives. I have real even on systems where I've put XT IDE cards, and I put them everywhere. I still have real floppy drives for a couple of reasons. Primarily because my drives still work, at least most of them do. But I also, you can't see it because I've got my background blocked out, but I use my 5160 every month to archive software and put online software that has not yet been archived. I recently uploaded to my archival collective a couple of titles that we hadn't seen before. Podlaserium IUM is a title from 1982 and then maybe later 1983, and it was sold mail order only. I happened to grab that, and you will see that online pretty soon. It's like an enhanced Space Invaders in text mode. I don't particularly like it, but one other member of the collective really does like it, so maybe I'm just a fuddy-duddy. What else did I upload recently? Some other title from 1982. Oh, something. Software Laboratories Fun Pack or Fun Package. Fun fact, not fun. Lots of stuff written in BASIC. One of them is like literally a dice rolling program. It doesn't even qualify as a game, but there are some games on the Fun Pack. That's 1982. I love digging up this stuff from pre-1985, all this stuff that's written in compiled BASIC or booters. I love self-booting programs. So anyway, I keep my floppy drives working because I use them to archive software. So I do not use a GoTech. That was a long-winded way of me saying why I don't use GoTechs. I don't begrudge people who do use them, but they're not for me. Now, as for having 4 floppy drives on a system, I don't think that's useful from a DOS standpoint. However, it is great for people trying to archive stuff off 8-inch drives. And I'm assuming that is what Bill is going to do. So that would be fantastic to have a 360, a 1.4, a 1.2, and maybe an 8-inch drive and on a single system. That would be one hell of an archiving system. That would be really great. Jesper says, yes, but I need the features from 622. I'm just curious, Jesper, what you think is missing from FreeDOS that is only in 622. I'm not saying that as a fan of FreeDOS. I'm actually not that big a fan of FreeDOS, but I believe you can add what you need from 622. Like, is it the disk compression you need? Is it a decent memory manager? For that, just use QEMM. It's amazing. Is it something else? I mean, I'm just curious what you can't use in FreeDOS. Pirate Gamer Boy, the audio delay is what you said you hated in capture videos. Yes, I know. Here, will this help? Can I, here, watch this. Yay! Now the audio's not delayed anymore. um, I'm just, until the audio delay is fixed, which it won't be, I'll go ahead and, well, no, I'll turn me on because otherwise people will think this is weird. All right, I'll tell you what, I'm going to wrap it up at 10:15, which is in 10 minutes, because you're right, I hate audio delay, and I am going to be a hypocrite for having it in my own stream. I'll try to figure out what happened so that it won't happen again. So, sorry, catching up on comments. 50 Shades of Beige. I always use one floppy and one hard drive, even if my OS is on an SSD. Something about the sound of the drives is really nostalgic. It is. There's another good reason to have a floppy drive. If you're playing a game that runs from a floppy drive and you are familiar with it, you can do, you learn the program via visceral feel, if that makes sense. One of my favorite memories is playing the booter version of Wizardry on my PC, and when you kicked down a door and went into a room with a lot of monsters, it would have to load the monster bitmaps from floppy. So if you kick down the door and the drive is going chunk, 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 you knew it was like loading a lot of stuff, which means there was a lot of monsters. And I would dive for the floppy drive and rip the floppy out because I knew I was going to get my ass kicked. And you do that, and then you reboot the system. You boot the game back up. You put in your disk, and you can like recover your party. There was like some utility function that you could recover your party, and then you just went back down to the dungeon and did not go into that same room until your levels were up. So yeah, I love that stuff. Bill knows what I'm talking about. Pirate Gamer Boy, Zorian Siege is a text mode PC game. Yes, it is. And what's interesting about it is that it is exactly the same game in color text mode, monotext mode, and graphics mode, because the graphics mode is just them drawing little 4x8 pixel representations of what the 80x25 text characters are. And I thought that was kind of cute, a little unnecessary, but yeah, it's an interesting game. And it's also a very early form of digitized speech, although not the earliest one. I believe the very earliest game to have digitized speech, well, it's probably a tie, actually. It's probably a tie between Zorian Siege and Warriors of Raz. Dunzin, Warriors of Raz. I spelled like this, I think. Where's my chat window? I believe it was that. So there we go. Catching up. 50 Shades of Beige. Am I going to VCF East? I am not. I believe David Murray, 8-Bit Guy, will be going. I don't know of anyone else who will be there. For various logistical reasons and other reasons, it would be very difficult for me to go to VCF East. However, I am thinking of going to VCF Southwest, which is a new show that I believe you can get to vcfsw.org. I think that's the site. There was a VCF Southwest in years past, but they're starting it back up again. It's a new group, and they've already got a website. The tickets go on sale at the end of the month. And my friend David Murray will be there, and he was gracious to come and visit my show, so now I'm going to come down and visit his show. It's not his specifically; he was on the planning meeting in the planning committee in the early stages. But David has his irons in many fires, and so he bowed out. But he's going to be there, and it's been a long, long time since I was in Texas, so I'm going to go back to Texas and go to VCF Southwest. Most likely. It's June 23rd to 25th, if I remember correctly. Yi2, I swear there are certain commands that differ for scripts in FreeDOS versus DOS 622. You might be right, but that is the kind of thing where it's not really a problem until it's a problem. like 99% of the batch files that are out there, like install batch files or whatever, they'll either use like very basic ask functions, or if they're earlier programs, they may come with their own like ask.com little tiny binaries that like will ask for yes, no, or whatever, and output an error code or whatever. So give it a try with FreeDOS. You'll probably be fine. I like Jesper's suggestion of trying out the FreeDOS Live CD. Great way to see if it'll even work at all. Let's see. I'd say we've got 5 minutes left of this horrible out of sync stream before I cut it out. Jesper would like to have a CD drive in his vintage system, but floppy disks are not easy to get hands on these days. I'm not quite sure. I mean, you kind of said two things in that sentence. Floppy disks are hard to get. I don't know. Are they really? I will say this. David Murray bought the last chunk of 5 1/4 inch double-sided double-density drives from floppydisk.com. So they no longer have any at floppydisk.com. He cleared them out because he came out with the DOS version of Pedsky Robots recently, which you can go to his website and order. And he wanted to, he needed inventory for stock inventory. But are they really hard to get? 5 1/4 inch floppy drives? One of my favorite ways of getting 5 1/4 inch floppies is going on eBay and looking for like huge lots of them, like 50 discs. And even if you get 50 discs for $50, it's still $1 a disc. But generally, you'll find a lot of like, 200 Commodore 64 games for $80. And you're like, $80? I'm not going to spend $80 on games. But then when you do the math, you're like, oh, wait, that means I'm spending only what, 70 or 60 cents a disc? Yeah, sure. And then you do that, and then you don't need it to get any more discs for the next 2 or 3 years or 10 years or whatever. Commodore 64, probably not a good example because the majority of them might be single-sided. But yeah, I usually look for lots, and then I've got 5 1/4 inch floppies coming out my ears here. I mean, I've got to have at least 500 spare. So I've stopped acquiring them. And as for, I'd love to have a CD drive. There's still a good reason to put CD drives in a system. One of my favorite things to do with my Pentium, I've got a Pentium with a 3-disc CD changer in it, and I love playing something like Under a Killing Moon or the Pandora Directive on it. Being a changer, it can change the CDs. Unfortunately, Under a Killing Moon is 4 CDs, and I only have a 3-disc changer, so there is a mild amount of irritation there, but generally it works pretty well. Let's see. Pirate Gamer Boy, I'd rather use that unofficial DOS 7 rip instead of FreeDOS if you need FAT32. I think I kind of agree. I mean, it's hard to hate on an open source group, right? I mean, the guy's name, I think it might even be Jim. He created FreeDOS from scratch. And for being a kernel written entirely in C, it's not too bad. I admire anyone who's created a project and stuck with it and gotten volunteers and built it up into something honestly very useful. I know some embedded systems boot FreeDOS, for example. I don't like it from a performance standpoint. I don't like the fact that it's really difficult, if not impossible. Well, I shouldn't say impossible. It's frustratingly difficult to get running on sub 386 hardware. Non-protected mode hardware. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not a FreeDOS hater, but I definitely prefer real Microsoft or IBM written DOS than I do FreeDOS. Let's see. Richard says, same 20-hour drive to Texas as it is to Illinois, and it's a 14-hour drive for me to drive from Illinois to Texas, so I won't be driving. I think Southwest will fly me there for hopefully under $300. We'll have to see. Let's see. Drives and discs. So 3.5 inch drives are definitely not rare. 1.44 meg discs are definitely not rare. 5 1/4 inch drives, I still don't think they're rare. The problem is you don't know what you're getting. Unless you you have the model numbers memorized, you're not entirely sure if what you're getting from some lot O drives, are they high density or low density? And it kind of matters. If you're want to connect one to a CryoFlux, you probably want a high density drive, although it's kind of super irritating to have to double step the tracks. If you want to actually use it in an older system, then you really need a low density drive. So I've got like a stack of drives, like maybe 10 that that are spares. But I don't know if they're high density or low density. I could find out that they're all high density and I'd be screwed. But anyway, let's see. Jim Hall, FreeDOS. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. And interesting that it has compatibility issues with LAN Manager. There's so much. I wonder if the FreeDOS project looked at the MS-DOS 6.1 or 6.0 source code leak from, I want to say it was 8 years ago. Maybe they could learn some stuff from that. Although, not really, because the DOS source code, if you actually look at it, it's practically all macros. So, which makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons that aren't worth going into right now. But I tried following the DOS 2 source code once for doing something. And it's like, that code is like half, I don't want to say half, it's probably like 75% macros. So you have to keep multiple windows open trying to remember what, push AR to LV means or something like that. I'm making that up, but you're like, what? And then you go and look at the macro and it's like, yeah, oh, okay. It's setting a vector. Okay, got it. So anyway, Chris is going to be at Southwest. Well, then Chris, I have a feeling you may see me there. YouTube for repair disks and being compatible with firmware update binaries. Yeah. Although that's happening less and less. Oh, when I was building this rig, my new rig, I got into a stupid chicken and egg problem. I had this on my last computer too, and I actually had to buy a CPU to fix it. So you get a motherboard that supports everything that goes into its socket. But you want to insert a processor that was made after the board came out. And so you have a chicken and egg, you have a catch-22. The board supports your processor physically, but it won't boot because it doesn't have the firmware or the BIOS support or whatever. So you're like, well, what do I do? Well, when I did it 8 years ago, I had to buy an older CPU to boot the board, to flash the BIOS that would let my new CPU work. This time, I am so happy to see this. I think this started happening about 4 years ago. Motherboards now have a flash BIOS with nothing installed option. You put the new firmware on a USB, you stick it in the back of the board, you press a button, you have no memory and no CPU installed, but you give it power, you hit that button, and it flashes, and some light blinks for 7 minutes, and it flashes the firmware for you. I did that. Sure enough, my new CPU worked, and it booted the whole system. It was fantastic. So, hooray for progress. Ditz, I'm so sorry. I'm super delayed, not only right now with this audio delay, but also getting to the comments. Bit off the conversation, but are you going to do an advanced video on VHS video archiving in the future? Probably. I have a love-hate relationship with those videos. I had this dream of making a vintage technology, vintage computer themed channel, but the videos that are propping up the channel and keeping it monetized are the video capture ones. How to clean mold off videotapes, how to capture video in 2016, the new one that I just made, how to capture video in 2023. And those are more popular topics than the topic of vintage computing. I suspect more than half my subscriber base are just for those couple of videos. I will be doing something about how to do advanced video archival and restoration. I might do it only in the first month of the year, just so the whole channel doesn't become a video archival channel, which would make me a little sad. I'm actually more sad and frustrated that other channels aren't picking this up. Why is everybody getting video archival wrong? That's the thing that drives me up the wall. I sent anyway, I don't want to go into it, but it's so easy to do video archival correctly. It's just I guess people just don't know, and so I've been trying to push the whole thing. You know, every frame has 2 fields in it. Each field is a different moment in time. They're not there to annoy you. They're actual content. You take both fields out of each frame. You make both of those fields their own full frames. Your 30 frame per second capture should become a 60 frame per second output. This is what I'm trying to push, and yet so many other tutorials get it wrong. So that's very frustrating. Yes, I will be doing something. I feel like I've got 2 more videos in me on this subject. I think one would be what I do to get better archival dumps, and this will be a very short video. I'll go into running everything through a time-based corrector, using quality hardware, like I use a Blackmagic Intensity card. Don't go through a digital conversion process until it gets in the computer, like analog all the way to the capture card. Don't do analog to an HDMI converter and then capture HDMI. That's bad news. I also capture directly to uncompressed because storage is cheap, and why risk losing anything with a lossy compression scheme? I captured uncompressed. I also captured a 10-bit, not 8-bit. So yeah, it's like, I don't know, 200 gig an hour maybe. But like I said, space is cheap. I mean, honestly, it really is. You can get a 5 terabyte drive for $80 that connects into a USB port. I mean, you know, so sometimes I will take my archival dumps and I'll recompress them as ProRes 422 HQ. That's fine. It's technically lossy, but it's visually lossless, so that's acceptable. And then a final video I might do is how to restore video and enhance it, not remaster it. I hate it when people use that term. Restoration of video is taking what you've got and cleaning it up. Remastering, which is the wrong term, is when you have access to the original elements and you completely create a new video based on those elements. For example, the HD versions of Star Trek Next Generation. Those are true remasters. They found the old film elements, they re-scanned them at 2K, I think. They re-edited all of them together into the show, and then they recreated the special effects in HD. That's a remaster. Taking a VHS tape and scaling it up to 4K is not a remaster. It's not even really a restoration. It's like an enhancement. I just don't know the correct term for it. I can definitely see I'm still audio delayed on this end, and it's driving me up a wall, and I went past my time. So I'm going to quickly run through the comments and kill this and try to figure out. I'll try to do a better offline test to try to figure out the audio delay. I know it must be annoying, you guys. I really appreciate you sticking around. Pirate Gamer. Oh, okay. Oh gosh, I got a lot of comments to go. Let's see. All right. Let's rapid fire some of these things out. Is there any way to make floppies for a Commodore 64 using a PC of any age? Pirate Gamer Boy correctly says you can get a cable to connect a 1541 drive to a PC. It's a parallel port cable. And the software is very old. It runs in DOS. But it works perfectly. And you can write .dsk files, I believe it is, directly to, unprotected disks directly to it. I would guess you can probably also use a CryoFlux to make a Commodore 64 disk. I'm not totally sure about that. People have been making disks with the SuperCard Pro. However, the future of that product is in question. There aren't any available. There probably won't be any available for a while. But yeah, it's totally possible. And there's got to be some tutorials out there. I'm not an expert, but if you do a search, you'll be able to do that. Is YouTube doing VHS conversions correctly yet? No. They probably never will, even though they totally could. In 2010, I uploaded a 60p video when they were not supporting 60 frames a second. And I was overjoyed and shocked to see that, oh, we support 60p now. And they went back and reconverted all of the 60p stuff to be actually 60p. So this video I uploaded, it's called The World of Tron 2.0, if you're curious. I was overjoyed to see it suddenly pop up like in 2016 in 60p, and now everyone was seeing it the way I originally made it. So they can go back and take interlaced uploads and process them, but they won't because it's not a priority for them. So, oh well. This is why the tutorial that I made outputs a 1080p final target. And you might be thinking, well, why would you do that? Because I wanted this recent tutorial that I did to be a generic one-step process that solves almost like the general populace's problems, which is you click a button to record, you click another button to stop recording, and boom, you've got a file you can immediately upload to YouTube. And YouTube will only display 60 frames per second if it is a 720 line or higher video, 720p or higher. So that's why my tutorial has people creating these 1080p files, because then they can upload them to YouTube and they'll look exactly the same. So, not happy about it, but that's what I did it. Legalize adulthood. Wait till you do a video on gamma correction. I am staying away from gamma correction. It took me long enough to understand that. How do you think I'm going to explain it to other people? And I mean, only just last year did I finally start doing gamma corrected resize stuff, you know, where you adjust the gamma, you do your resize, and then you fix the gamma again in order to keep the gamma correct. Anyway, I think Richard's pulling my leg, but I think he knows what he's doing. Pirate Gamer Boy says, don't copy that. Floppy's official upload got it wrong. Yes, they did. To be fair, that upload is from 2009. Yes, to be fair. I might upload mine. I mean, I have the file already. I've thought about it. Wouldn't it be hilarious if I got a copyright strike for that? I think I might do it just to see if I get a copyright strike for a video that says at the very end of it, we encourage copying this video. Oh, the irony, the double irony. 50 Shades of Beige, if you are somehow still here, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on using Topaz to deinterlace footage. Topaz sucks at deinterlacing footage. I'm shocked at how bad it is, especially since they've integrated their stuff into FFmpeg, which is so cool. You can actually spit out a command line that if you use their version of FFmpeg that hooks into their stuff, you can use it to do batches of stuff. So they've got FFmpeg at their fingertips, and they do the worst deinterlace, some of the worst deinterlacing I've ever seen. I think it's just a straight bob. And you'd think with all this AI and all the stuff that they do right, that they would be able to do it. I don't know what's up. Maybe they'll... So when I use Topaz AI, I deinterlace with AVI Synth and Qt GMC. I don't resize, I just deinterlace. And that progressive 60p is what I feed into Topaz, and then I go from there. And that's what I'll do and that's what I'll explain if I ever do a video about it. Let us see what else is there. Jesper, first time here. Nice to meet you in all the chat. I live in Denmark and the time is 4 a.m. Jesper, you're probably not here, but thank you for joining, and apologies for this utterly horrible delay. What else is there? Rickdens might be a noob question. I'm heavy into PC, TRS-80, Apple IIe, but recently got a Commodore 64 128, so it's a new world. It is a new world. And the 128 is interesting in its own right. For example, you have a resolution of 640 by 200 and up to 16 colors with the Commodore 128, but only if you connect a CGA monitor to its second video port. How weird is that? David Murray and I have had a lot of conversations over the years where he has educated me on the Commodore 128, and it's a fascinating beast. 2 CPUs, 2 modes of operation, 2 video paths, 2 video outputs. It's fun stuff. That said, I recently got rid of all my Commodore 64 stuff. With my personal collection, I have found the most value that I can provide other people is in specializing. So I mean, I still have an Apple II, 2E. I've got two Apple IIes. I've got two Macs. I have a lot of Amigas, but those are definitely on the sidelines. I'm going to pull out the Apple IIs for a video I'm making this year, but then that's all I have to say. I mean, so by specializing in just one thing, like, you know, PCs from 1981 to 1994 or 1995, I feel like I can be more of a subject matter expert and answer questions better that way. So I gave away all my Commodore 64 stuff. Sorry. Let's see. You need to master a remaster. You're absolutely right. 60 Shades of Beige. Really wish the 128 would have had more support. Lots of potential. Yeah. I'll tell you, one of the biggest pieces of fun you can have with a Commodore 128 now is, and I hope this doesn't sound like shilling for the 8-bit guy, but Petsky Robots, the Commodore 128 version, is great. It can output to both monitors simultaneously. You have a map on one and the gameplay on the other. It's kind of cool. So I would do that. RetroTech Chris, have you bought a Naboo yet? Chris, if you're still here, remind me what a Naboo is. Is that the universal keyboard translator? Naboo, what is that? I'm going to type Naboo Vintage and try to figure out. Oh, the Naboo. No. This is that Z80 thing that was popular in Canada, and it was originally a set-top box for a video text kind of thing. No, I have not bought a Naboo, and I will not buy a Naboo. I'm not against it. It just doesn't appeal to me. I love watching everybody else do stuff with the Naboo, but it is not a project for me. I think it's way cool that a ton of new old stock of a particular thing is out there. I think it's so cool watching a Naboo community crop up, and people are already doing amazing stuff with it. But it's not for me specifically. I have enough projects as it is. There's a reason my background is black. It's pretty messy back here. I do have, speaking of projects, I mean, I would love to, I have a couple, my patrons know this. I have a Patreon. It's modest. I told them at the beginning of the year what my video plans were for this year. I'm trying to bang out 2 or 3 videos before Vintage Computer Festival Midwest really ramps up. I'll tell you guys here, just since you're suffering with this horrible out of sync stream, as long as you're still here. Hey, Benjamin, nice to see you here. I'll get to you in just a second. The next 2 videos I have planned are comparing and contrasting all of the Apple II on a boards for the PC. So you can jam a board into your IBM PC and run Apple II software on it. How many boards were there? How well did they work? Well, I have them all. So, so we'll be comparing and contrasting them. All of them? I think I'm missing 1. There were 4 track stars released. I've got 3 of them. Good enough. And I have a quad link, and it is in fact the quad link that was lent to TubeTime, and that's how he created his open source. We had a deal. I sent him the quad link. I sent him 2 quad links, one that was working and one that was broken. And the broken one was sent to me by Brandon Cobb, who was hoping I could fix it, and I wasn't skilled enough to fix it. I sent both boards to TubeTime. He reverse engineered the working board. He used it to fix the bad board. And then he put all of his designs online and came up with a clone board. And I also have the clone board. So that was very nice of him. So this is a win-win all around. So, and then the second one I'd like to do is I'm just going to just flat out do a games video. I have to at some point. Got to get subscribers somehow. I'm going to show off all of the Atari soft games that were published for the PC. Jungle Hunt, Battlezone, Pac-Man, Stargate, you know, et cetera, and including Donkey Kong, which was incredibly hard to find because it sucks. And yeah, compare them with the arcade and try to figure out which ones were good, which ones were bad, etc. So hopefully that'll be fun. All right, I'm sorry, I'm back to comments. I'm thankful you guys are still here. I know this out of sync stream must be super irritating. Just don't look at me and it won't be out of sync. What else do we have? Butt Guy says, I will say, as a collector of basically every single home computer system from the 70s to mid-90s, the PC always seems to the platform I come back to and focus on. It was not my first system. My first system was an Apple II Plus in 79. I think that's the first personal computer I ever touched. And then an Osborne in 1980, CPM. The first game I remember playing is Classic Cave Adventure on the Osborne. Then the Apple II series again. Dabbled with a VIC-20, and then finally, my father worked for AT&T, and we managed to bring home a PC clone, the AT&T 6300, in 1984. And that was it. I had that sucker in my bedroom for like 5.5 years. And, well, not in my bedroom. It was on the kitchen table for like 3 years. And then he bought a second one because I was using it all the time. Yeah, PC. You know what's interesting about collecting vintage systems and the PC? For the longest time, and thankfully this is different, but up until I want to say like 2010, there was almost no decent coverage of the PC. There was tons of resources for the Commodore 64, the Apple II, the Amiga, the TRS-80, Atari 8-bit systems, the ST, and almost nothing for the original PC. That's why I started this channel. That's why I started my not my persona, whatever you want to call it. That's why I focused on that, because I was like, well, someone's got to do it. And I was always wondering, why is that? And I think it's because the PC won the home computer wars. I mean, today we have PC and we have Mac. And, you know, Mac changed from PowerPC over to Intel in the 2000s. So, you know, Intel won, I guess. So the PC never really went away. And so because it kind of never went away, I feel like maybe there wasn't like a whole stream of nostalgia for it or anything. They're like, yeah, whatever. Like PCs aren't gone. I'm still using one. Well, thankfully, in the last 10 to 13 years, that's changed. And people are now nicely and correctly covering the PC. That's how I originally got enamored with LGR, with Clint, and reached out to him because some of his very first videos were early IBM PC games and hardware and stuff like that. And I thought he was doing a great job, and I encouraged him. So, and now we have a whole bunch of people covering it, and I think that's great. But I just find that really fascinating that the PC didn't get a lot of coverage until very late. So who knows? Okay, Benjamin Levitt, I'm sorry. God, I hope you're still here. Apologies for everything. It's my first time here as well. I have questions about learning x86 assembly for DOS. Is it best to use period-appropriate books to learn, or are there better modern books available? You are caught in a catch-22. The tools, like NASM or FASM, are modern, but the best learning materials are old. So if you try to follow the examples to the letter in the book, you'll create an assembly source file that NASM or FASM may not be able to actually assemble. I would recommend, if you want to dabble, I would recommend getting some of the pretty much any book on assembler is going to be good. I've read probably 10 or 12 of them. I haven't really come across a really bad one. One of the books that I felt was, you know, you can go about this a couple of ways. You can grab Zen of Assembly, which is Michael Abrash's book, and it is highly technical, but he does start at the beginning, so it's very interesting to read. Or you can go with something a little bit more modest, like I like to use Turbo Assembler and Mastering Turbo Assembler by Tom Swan. That one teaches you a very specific dialect of assembler, Turbo Assembler's ideal mode, but I recommend that because the book is great and ideal mode protects you from yourself. It is a stricter syntax of assembler. It won't let you get away with ambiguous statements that could crash well, you can crash a program no matter what, but Microsoft's MASM up until version 6 would let let you construct a assembler source and that was very ambiguous, and it would not necessarily do what you thought it was doing. Turbo Assembler Ideal Mode fixed that. Then later, Microsoft Assembler 6.0 fixed themselves. And so most DOS assembly was done with MASM 6.0 or higher after MASM came out. Grab any book. Go to archive.org. Look for any book on, learning assembler. Look for Microsoft Assembler or Microsoft Macro Assembler. There was a Usenet Assembler FAQ, frequently asked questions, text file that listed a couple of books that were good. So yeah, I would start with DOSBox and grab some assembler and a book and go for it. And if you're really not keen on proprietary assemblers, go ahead and grab NASM, and you'll just have to try to translate. Like, the actual statements are exactly the same, but things like defining segments or directives are going to be different in NASM, so you may have to figure that out. But yeah, go for it. Assembler's hilarious. Fun fact, Weiler, the artist in Area 5150, he's a programmer, but his first real DOS programming was not in C or Pascal or something. It was an assembler. He went right to assembler. And I feel like that was a good move. Like, assembler, if you're a high-level language programmer, you look at assembler and you're like, what the hell is that? I could never get that. But if you know no languages and assembly is your first language, you'll learn it just fine. It's like you don't know how hard it is because you don't know anything else. So dive into it. Assembler is not hard. Writing good assembler is hard, but assembler itself is not hard. So that's my rant on assembler. Oh gosh, what else do we have here? Naboo, Collector of Home Systems, 3DO Blaster 80s edition, Pirate Gamer Boy. Yes. I'm trying to. I have a cool thumbnail for that video of an Apple computer jammed inside an IBM. I thought I was going to go with the Reese's peanut butter cup, like, you got your Apple in my IBM, you got your IBM in my Apple, but no, it's. I think I'm going to draw the Apple logo, but with the IBM blue bar logo imposed on top of it. But yeah, isn't that crazy? Why buy a second system if you can just jam that system into your existing system? And part of the video will explore why would anyone want to do that. Like, it wasn't that much cheaper. It was cheaper, but not too much. So what are the pros and cons of doing that? I have to go in 2 minutes. I'm going to wrap this up in 2 minutes, regardless of how many comments I get through. How deep down the PC 6300 rabbit hole have you gone? Completely. Like, all the way. Know any demos that take advantage of its unique features? No. But I recently posted on a GitHub for some project whose name escapes me right now. I posted all the details on getting the second video page up and running. The 6300, the Olivetti M24, in CGA mode has enough video RAM for 2 pages, and there's a hardware bit you can toggle to flip the pages. You imagine how much faster CGA software could have been on that system if people took advantage of it? Instead of rendering everything to a buffer and then copying that buffer to the screen, you could just render to the hidden buffer and then flip a bit and make it visible. I do not know of any demos or games that use it. Maybe in the future. Lucky enough to have the AMDEC color unit. You are lucky to have the AMDEC color unit. Pi Caruso 97. What's your favorite modern ISA sound card clones or brand new designs for the original PC? There are many, like the AdLib clone, the Innovation and SID, the Snark Barker, and much more. Clones. I love the Snark Barker for its name. That's a funny name. I love saying Snark Barker. For the other clones, my favorite clone is the one that hasn't been done yet, and that is actually going to be one of the third videos I do this year, and that's going to be all on the Mockingboard for the PC, or the Bank Street Music Writer card. Part of doing that video is that once that video is done, I'm going to scan the hell out of it and upload it, and hopefully someone will be able to make a clone of it. right now there's only one piece of software that uses it, but it is one of the, if not the first actual sound card for the PC, predating the ad-libs. So I think that'll be interesting. There was a project, I think the Pico Gus is a good project right now. It has it's a little bit of ways to go still, but it's really far along, and I think that's also really cool. I just wish Raspberry Pis weren't so expensive. The project I was really looking forward to, unfortunately, has stalled. It was Alan Hightower's all-in-one card, which he gave a presentation on at VCF Midwest. I think it was in 2019. And it was an FPGA that gets reprogrammed with as many cores as you want to load into it. So you could have a single board in your system that would be both a Gravis Ultrasound and an AdLib and an MT32 and a General MIDI card and an Innovation and a Game Blaster. They'd all have to put them on different ports and stuff like that. But essentially, it was an everything card. He got as far as making a fully working Gus core for it, Gravis Ultrasound core. And then COVID happened, and then need to make money happened. I mean, real life gets in the way. I hope he'll return to it someday. I'm glad you explained the difference between TASM and MASM, because I was looking at early MASM. I'll be sure. Cool. So yeah, Benjamin, I hope that information helped you. There's nothing wrong with MASM. There's nothing wrong with TASM. I'm just giving you that information now so that if you get hung up or tripped up in the future, you'll know why, and how to get around it. Bill says, thanks for everything you do. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. Maybe I should do these streams more often. Not with an audio delay, obviously. But sometimes it's nice to hear. I've become very disenchanted as an archivist, which is I lamented that in my my interview with the Life and Times of Video Games. They interviewed me about Moby Games, and I came across as very defeatist, and it's nice to hear some kind words now and then. Eric's Edge, sorry I missed the start of the stream. No, you're probably not, because this whole stream has been out of sync for a while due to a hardware problem on my end, so sorry about that. DOS Nostalgia, oh, I'm so glad you showed up. If you could be half man, half sausage, which way around and why? I would want the left side of me to be sausage and the right side to be man. Not the answer you were expecting. And Starlight says Pico Gus. Okay, guys, it's 10:47. The audio delay is driving me nuts. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble. Thanks so much for the questions. I hope to make this a regular thing. And, if you have any other questions, feel free to contact me. I would prefer email because I can write a longer response. But if you want to try to get at me on Twitter, I check Twitter about once a week. I'm at MobyGamer on Twitter. You can email me at mobygamer@gmail.com. And thanks again for showing up. 50 Shades agrees. I should do them at least once a month. All right, maybe I'll do that. I mean, I want to do polished, professional, long form,